Excellent. All right, I think we're at about the halfway point here. I see Joseph's got a question. Joseph, here, why don't you go next?
I got one.
James, I'll get you next.
So, being here at Tech Alley, and a couple of months ago, we were talking about could technology or startups or the startup ecosystem help solve some of these problems? When we're talking about bikes and even gathering people around bike rallies and getting together and using, these different bike paths, is there a tech solution or is there a way to engage the startup ecosystem to find solutions for getting people out and using the trails and having a healthier lifestyle?
Yeah, I'm sure you know way more ways than I do, but I even think gaming strategies could really work here. I saw a gaming strategy that was used in a village in Africa to get people to get their water from a particular well because they knew it was clean there instead of where they were going to a river. And they used a gaming strategy to get the behavior they wanted, and it was hugely successful. I think we could do stuff like that, right, where we're offering carrots and incentives for people to say, one of the things we were talking about Sunday on the ride, by the way, if you did not ride the wrong way on Broadway when it was closed, like it just felt like the most devious thing I have done in a very long time. I was also so stressed out at every intersection. I was like, seriously, don't we have to stop? But the gaming, I totally lost what the counters that, currently count, we got to look at one of them in the bike lane, and they're pretty expensive to put in and they're fixed. And so one of the things that came up was, these magnetic that can attach to a pole, they're movable, they can do counts for us. And you could probably, to get the behavior you want, even start to say, if you register and are going across those, like maybe we say, if you write in this much and we register you as writing in, you're eligible to win a fancy Trek bike or something. Or an e-bike maybe might even be more appealing. I think there's ways technology could help us think about how do we get the behavior we want, where people are like, I'm totally willing to get myself entered in a drawing and win some stuff.
Excellent. James, you said you had a question?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I think you have amazing charisma. So kudos to you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. You mentioned you're about action, and you're part of this college where you got them off the fence to actually take action. So first part of this question is, what's the difference in that environment, school, where I think it'd be kind of the same as government? So is it the same or different? That's one side. Second is, what do you think would be the most effective to get past that in government?
Yeah.
Where you're actually making decisions and moving forward?
Yeah, I love this question. I actually think higher ed is more risk averse from my observation. I haven't worked in it than when I've worked for the city of Denver. That said, I'll give you another example. When I was the deputy chief of staff, I was responsible for trying to deliver the 311 system. We didn't have it. And we had a team of about 30 employees working on it. And there had been a team before me for 2 years trying to get it done and weren't making progress. And so the mayor asked, would you come over and see if you could deliver it? I promised it in the next 9 months, so could you? And I said, yeah, I'll give it a try. And so one of the first things I did is I just asked the team, what's your greatest fear, right, as we're trying to do this? Like, what worries you? And what was interesting is they had a fear for their job. If we deliver 311 and I don't need to answer the phone anymore, and that's what I do, am I going to lose my job? And I was like, that's a legit concern, right? I would go slow too if I thought the other end of this was bad news. So what I did is I told the employees, tell you what, I'm going to guarantee you won't lose your job because of 311. And I even gave them a letter in writing. I said, listen, if you're a poor performer, it's a different issue. But strictly for 311, you will not lose your job. We'll do it through attrition. The city's huge. I promise you, we can wait for someone else to quit and we'll move you over there, right? But you will not lose your job with the city. We delivered that project in 7 months. We went live the minute we did it. I share this with you because, being risk averse often has real reasons that you're hesitant to do something. You're fearful that you're going to be blamed or get in trouble. And I think that's another strategy where leadership can say, I'll take full responsibility for the decision we're about to make. So if we go live with a bike lane and something happens, I'll take responsibility, right? This isn't going to be on you as employees. Or I'll remove your fear of what bad thing might happen. And I think that's human nature. I think maybe in government we're just not as good at recognizing that we can remove that fear for our own team. And my experience is employees are as interested in making progress, improving your lives, as everybody else. They just need to be given permission to do it. And frankly, they have fabulous ideas often about what we should be doing differently. I'll give you an example. On my ride-along, I asked the police officers that I met that evening, if you could do one thing different downtown to make it safer, what would you do? Every single one of them said, could we please change the let-out time for bars? I just want to be clear. We all know this has been a problem for years and years and years. Every officer said, if you could, maybe you stop service at 2 a.m., but let everybody stay. I don't know what you do at 2 a.m., but whatever you would continue to do, you could. I just haven't been up that late in a long time. But you could stay, right? The let-out isn't all at one time. I use that as an example because our team knows how to do these jobs. And if we listen and jump in and say, let's change it. What is the risk? For goodness sakes, today, almost every weekend, something goes terribly wrong in that let out. I'm like, whatever we do next is probably going to be better. So let's risk it and just try it. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I love that mindset. Panel, while you think of the next question, I want to take care of a little business real quick. Couple of folks I have to thank, and I'll make sure we get your question in as well. First, I want to thank Tech Alley Denver. Tech Alley Denver puts this on every third Friday of the month. These are open, they're free. If you're a business owner, this is a great place to come and get your business, get some exposure for your business. And frankly, they're always fun. I want to thank the Escapists for letting us be here today. This is an escape room, you guys. You should come here sometime and try it out. See if you get stuck back there, if they let you out. And I want to make sure we thank Ghost Print. Ghost Print is in the house today doing composting for us. Yay. The idea with the name Ghost Print is to reduce your footprint. They do all kinds of fantastic stuff in the area of composting. And I just want to make it clear that if you sponsor ClimateCon, we'll get you great coverage. All right, so let's hand it back to the panel. Molly, you got a question for them or anything?
I do. Kelly, will you put a protected bike lane on my street? I'm gonna give you more context. So, but this is the place that it comes from.
Where do you live?
So I live in Capitol Hill, very dense neighborhood in Denver. Lots of people who live there already ride bikes. Lots of potential for mode shift in that neighborhood in particular. In the Denver Moves bike plan, one of the many, many plans that we have planned in Denver, many streets, north and south, you talked about knowing the north and south, are kind of sketchy routes in Denver, especially in central Denver. We're planned for some protected bike lanes. People like me were so excited that I wouldn't be sending it down the middle of these one-lane, one-way streets on my bike. I can go kind of fast, but like still a little bit sketchy. And so that doesn't make it easy and safe for people to get to the school on my street. So this project didn't end up moving forward, a protected bike lane, because of the concerns about parking. Can you talk a little, which I think in my experience in working in bike advocacy in Denver for the last 5 years, parking is the biggest barrier to having accessible, safe, particularly protected bike infrastructure. Can you speak to how you might address parking concerns, maybe manage parking better in the city? Tell us what you do and if you'll give me a bike lane.
If I could figure out how to manage parking, I'd be, doing something way better than running for mayor. This is such a challenge, and you've picked a neighborhood where alternatives are probably tougher for us to find. That said, in other cities, we know even being able to park your car a couple blocks from your house sometimes can allow us, right, where you say, we're going to create parking over here, and we're going to allow then that street to be able to have a protected bike lane. And we may have to do things like that, because I do recognize anytime I visit a friend in Capitol Hill, there is no place, if you drive, to park. And so I get it's a real issue and real tension today. And I think as we're making this transition, as we're recognizing maybe we need less cars, every driver in our house maybe doesn't need a car, we're still in a transition to it. And I think as we're in that transition, this tension is probably its worst moment in our history. And so I really do want to give you your bike lane, Molly, but I'd like to work with
Day one or?
Yeah. I predict in my first week You shall have. Yeah, I shouldn't do shit like that because it's like just joking.
All right, well, I'm done here.
Just joking. Yeah.
I got what I need.
What I predict in the first week, you and I are going to meet with your neighbors and say, how do we do this? Because we got to get there. How do we get to yes, and what does it look like? And how do we figure it out together? There has to be a way we can figure it out together. And it's going to go great. It's going to be amazing.
Jordan, you want to go next, and then we'll get John Paul next?
I don't have another question, but just to follow up, like, what about parking protected bike lanes and using, like, leveraging those so they get their parking, we get protected? So just throwing that out there. You have the question, right?
Here, you take this one.
Hi, John Paul for Littleton Big Life here. So I got a question on regards to recreational as well as like commuter bikers. So is there any possibility that we can increase the repair stations that are around to increase that? You know, we pack our own stuff in our own bags, but if we have the repair stations more around, we have the ability to go further, if you will.
Yeah. I think this is such an important issue. Here's one thing I do love about cyclists. Anybody who is stopped on the street when you ride by, the first thing you ask is, you got everything you need? And we will stop and give you whatever we've got that you need to get yourself back up and running. And I do love that. My hope is we could keep that ethic and that value. But I think this point about repair stations, is a good one. I hadn't thought about it as much. My bigger beef is, could you just give me a safe place to put my bike? Because I ain't leaving it out there. And listen, the more you ride, the more this is a serious issue. Even if I have a good lock and it ain't working. Half of your bike will be gone when you come out of that building. And so one of my big beefs is I believe we should be able to take our bikes into almost every building. I do. And I feel strongly about this. And I'll be honest with you, almost every building I've been in the city of Denver has allowed me to do it. But do you want to know which one?
Yeah.
The city and county building. Now remember, I commuted on my bike for years, and I took my bike into that building, into my office, and I parked it there. I went in to last summer meet with a member of council, and I rode my bike, and I had my lock, but when I got there, I was like, oh no, there's not even covered parking. By the way, the Webb building doesn't even let you take your bike down where city employees put their bikes, where they'd be safe in that parking lot. And so in both instances, when I went in for meetings, I called the person to say, I can't park my bike out on this street. Like, I can't do it. And so in both instances, they came up with a solution because they worked in the building. In one particular, when I was meeting with the council member, we got to his office and he said, what are your highest priorities? Climate's really important to me. And my answer was, people can bring their bike into the building. But I want you to think about, this is a building with the widest hallways you ever seen ever on the planet. Like, these hallways are huge. That you could easily park hundreds of bikes in those hallways and nobody would have trouble getting around or going to their meetings. I think about jury duty as an example. We should have safe parking for bikes throughout our city. And I think we just haven't thought of it like that. And as mayor, I would start to not only now think about repair, but I would think about where you can actually put your bike, that it's safe no matter where you're going.
I love it. It'd be great to have a mayor who had that cycling experience.